no one thinks oxymethylone is bad for you because they don't
Yeah.
know what the fuck it is. No one thinks oxandrolone's bad for you, but they don't know what the fuck it is. They think testosterone is the root of all evil. Testosterone's going to have you killing babies and stuff in a blind rage and flipping
Yeah.
over cars onto old women as they cross the road. Like they have this stigma from stupidity about testosterone because we've been taught that masculinity is evil, that
Right.
girls are made from sugar and spice and everything nice, and men are made from snails and puppy dog tails. And we're
Right.
taught that from such an early age that men should hate themselves and hate everything about ourselves, that we should hate our hormones too, and that
Right.
anything that comes from us is awful and evil. And so they hate testosterone, so they don't want you to have it, and and people don't want to put it in their bodies because they think it's going to kill them. But then they're taking oxandrolone and oxymethylone, which are worse
Hmm.
for you than testosterone.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Rise 41 podcast. My name is Gonzalo Gonzo Herrero, and it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Todd Lee today. Todd is a medical doctor, biochemist, national bodybuilding champion with expertise in biochemistry, psychology, and neuropsychopharmacology. As a bodybuilder, he's won titles like the NPC North American and NPC Masters National Championships. So, a lot. Beyond competing, he coaches athletes, develops evidence-based training and nutrition programs, and formulates performance-enhancing supplements through Valhalla Labs. He also educates the fitness community through his Anabolic University channel on YouTube, making him a leading authority in performance optimization and longevity. And with that, welcome, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. So just so you know, or as you know, this podcast focuses mostly on biohacking, longevity, and kind of that approach. So it's going to be a little different
Mhm.
from the usual bodybuilding and say anabolic enhanced type of conversations that I assume you're mostly involved with, given your background.
Right.
But as a medical doctor and biochemist, and competitor, there are many modalities and things and techniques and knowledge in the bodybuilding and fitness community that can
Mhm.
absolutely help somebody. Like, say, somebody trying to get healthy, somebody who's perhaps our age, think of TRT, think of improving their hormone profile, that kind of thing. So, with that, let me start with a super simple question and just ask your opinion. So, are there specific supplements or lifestyle interventions that can help men maintain their natural testosterone before going or taking the leap into TRT? Anything you would recommend at all, or
Well,
what are your thoughts of that?
it's a shameless plug, but I actually developed a product for that called Thor's Hammer.
Beautiful.
On ValhallaLabs.com. This way, most men, the reason why their testosterone is low isn't arbitrary, it's because of lifestyle.
Hmm.
However, assuming they are doing everything right as far as sleeping, nutrition, training, staying away from drugs like opiates and other prescription drugs,
Hmm.
if their testosterone is somewhere in the 400 range, where it's not low enough to necessitate HRT, using Thor's hammer should give the 30 to 40% increase to that.
Okay, so so that would be noticeable, and that would be something that would definitely yield recognizable benefit, and mitigate the symptoms of low T, which we know, lethargy, uh, just lack of drive, lack of energy, libido loss, etc. So awesome. So now moving on to, let's say somebody's beyond that point. Somebody's now considering TRT. So to somebody who's new to the field, what should they be looking out for? What should they be aware of? And what should be the protocol that you would recommend as a doctor?
So, what I do is totally different from what other doctors do. I
Okay.
feel that most HRT clinics are just doing it wrong, that they do 100 milligrams of testosterone every 3 or 4 days with a half of a milligram of Arimidex. And what's
Hmm.
funny is most of the patients aren't even sophisticated to know what that means. They know
Right.
that they use a half a cc of the testosterone and half of a pill, and they do that on Wednesday and Sunday. And that's what they
Right.
know, right? And it's like, oh, that's not how you teach anyone anything. So the correct way of doing it is to do 20 milligrams of test and
Mhm.
2 units of growth hormone every day. You don't
Okay.
need Arimidex if you're using dosing schedule like daily injections. And the only
Right.
way to do that is to use an insulin syringe. And people
Got it.
confabulate insulin syringe with subcutaneous. I'm not advocating subcutaneous injections. I'm
Right.
saying intramuscular with an insulin syringe every day, 20 milligrams
Okay.
of test and 2 units of GH. And that's a good starting point. That'll get most people up to a 1500 total test.
Okay.
Whereas the way that the other doctors do it, they'd be lucky to get 800, even though they're using more drugs.
Right. Because what you're advocating is because of the daily usage, you're maintaining that level constant
Hmm.
throughout the life cycle as you inject testosterone. Right. Is that correct? I can see it better too.
Yeah.
All right. So going back to the right way to approach HRT. So now you've got somebody on a daily routine that makes
Hmm.
more sense, that they understand. What do they need to be aware of? How often should they monitor? What would you do as the physician with
All
your
right.
patient?
So prior to this first dose, I would have collected blood work on all the important parameters. Now, my parameters are different from other people's parameters. I
Okay.
test some, in addition of the CBC and the CMP, I look at different things. So, for example, I make sure they're hydrated before they get their blood work done. Most of the time, these people, these HRT clinics, are
Hmm.
telling people to give blood to get their
Right.
hematocrit and hemoglobin down, but they're not disclosing that if you simply hydrated prior to the test, you wouldn't have elevated hemoglobin and hematocrit,
Okay.
that you're just dehydrated.
Hmm.
And that's because you're doing your blood work fasted. And patients don't understand that fasted does not mean no water.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
that if you're drinking a gallon or 2 gallons a day, like you're supposed to, if you're training for growing muscle, then if I go to bed at, let's say, 220 pounds, I'm going to wake up at 212 pounds 8 hours later. I'm going to
Right.
lose 1 pound of water an hour. So, in order for me to get back up to the proper hydration status, I need to drink 1 gallon of water, 8 pounds of water.
Right.
Nobody does that though. So, the first half of the day, they're dehydrated. So,
So
if they
already
go,
this patient is coming in without the right parameters for you to even test because they're
right.
not aware of that. Okay.
That's why almost always I have to do my own blood work on patients because the blood work they bring me from their HRT clinics or their primary care physician are inadequate because everything about them is wrong. It's not the
Gotcha.
patient's fault. The doctors are just abysmal at their job. So that they also look at the wrong markers. They look at creatinine as a measurement of kidney health and they calculate estimated GFR from creatinine. This is nonsense. That creatinine measures creatine. So if you're using creatine or you're eating meat or you're lifting weights or
Hmm.
you're dehydrated, your creatinine's going to go through the roof.
Right.
So it's an irrelevant detail in a population of men who are lifting weights or exercising. So the only time creatinine would be of any value to you is if it's normal. If it's
Gotcha.
normal, you're fine. But if it's high, you have to order a cystatin C to really see what the kidneys are doing. So I cut that out right off the bat. I don't waste time with a screening test and a confirmation test. The reason why
Right.
bad doctors do that is because they have to play by the health insurance company's rules.
Right.
And so, because everyone wants to save money and goes with health insurance because it's
Hmm.
free, it's
Yeah.
not free. You're paying $1,500 a month for health
Oh.
insurance.
Oh, I've
So,
got 3 kids. I know.
yeah, health
Yeah.
insurance is nonsense. That
Hmm.
if you basically, if you just pay out of pocket, I can get blood work for someone for $550 that is $2,500 if they were ordered it from LabCorp, and their doctor wouldn't even know how to order it. So
Right.
it's of no value for someone who's doing this specific task of hormone replacement therapy.
Right.
So I just cut to the chase and order the cystatin C to see if their kidneys are damaged. Now, if with HRT doses, no one's going to take kidney damage. They've
Right.
terrified this population into thinking by using a normal amount of medicine, you're going to get unhealthy. And there's no common sense. If testosterone was so bad for you, then why don't all the teenagers have liver failure? Why don't all the teenagers have kidney failure? Why don't all the teenagers stroke out? It's
Yeah.
nonsense that there's no brain in these doctors' heads. How could they possibly overlook the fact that if all you're doing is trying to take a 40-year-old man and bring his hormones to the levels they were at 20 or 17 or 18, then
Hmm.
if it was so dangerous, all the teenagers would be dropping dead, but they're
Yeah.
not. The same thing goes for growth hormone. This nonsense that growth hormone causes cancer. Well, if
Right.
that's true, why aren't all the children at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old with huge growth hormone levels, why don't they all have cancer? Doesn't make
Right.
any sense. So, and people will say, well, it's more complicated than that. I'm like, each individual nuance could be picked apart, but the
Hmm.
big picture is if all you're trying to do is bring your blood work to the point that your hormones to where they were when you were at your healthiest,
Right.
there's no reason to just imagine calamity and that there's going to be some type of consequences to that. So
Gotcha.
if it's like when a child thinks there's a monster under their bed,
Uh-huh.
and so you have to take a flashlight and look under the bed, say, look, there's no monsters, and then show them there's no monsters, and now they'll go to sleep. That's like what it's like to have a 40-year-old man, and you have to show him that the testosterone he's using isn't
Right.
killing him. It's like, look, the blood. Well, like, what if there's something the blood work doesn't show? It's like, what if the monster's invisible? You know, like
Right.
that. The fear will never end. You will never convince an anxious person that there
Hmm.
is no danger. You'll never convince a coward to have courage, right? But the truth is that most of this is made up nonsense
Hmm.
and fear mongering. Just like how for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, they said that marijuana makes Mexicans rape women,
Right.
right? That
Yes.
was the thing in the
Yeah. That was in
1930s
the
was,
yeah back in the day.
yeah,
Reefer
yeah,
Madness. I remember that.
Reefer, exactly. It's the same shit. Is that
Hmm.
roid rage, this imaginary thing that using testosterone or growth hormone is going to make you flip out and kill people. It's just because they want to keep you weak and easily controlled. So
Yeah.
they make up these lies.
So let's talk about this a little bit. Actually, this is a fun and interesting topic. So there's definitely a difference and a divergence in approach, I would imagine, between somebody approaching HRT for a health longevity perspective. They're going to be more risk averse, I would imagine. They might
Uh-huh.
not want as much performance because they're focused on the longevity, right? So they'll be more
There,
conservative. Is that right?
there was, yeah, let me go, we'll get to the psychosocial thing in a minute. Let me finish with the blood work.
Yes.
So we covered kidneys. The other thing they don't order is GGT. What
Okay.
shitty doctors do is they misunderstand ALT and AST and they think those are liver enzymes. Those are not liver enzymes. Those are aminotransaminases. So
Okay.
your liver has metabolism, but your muscle has metabolism also.
Right.
So if you exercise, you will break down muscle tissue and you will have more liver transaminases or aminotransaminases in the bloodstream so that your ALT and AST will go up. Now, another thing is that they've lied and said was that if your ALT is higher than your AST, it's your liver. This is not true. ALT has a long half-life and AST has a short half-life. So if you
Oh,
hit legs on Monday, you're going to have really high values on Tuesday of both, but by Thursday, your ALT will only be high and your AST will be normal.
right.
So
Yes.
this 3 days off bullshit only applies if you train like a little girl. If you actually are training hard, your AST and ALT will be up for a week or 2 weeks. So
Gotcha.
they found this in Olympic athletes as well. They said that the average Olympic athlete would have a 700 AST and ALT after training.
And the
So this
standard that a doctor would look for is how much?
20 or 30.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, so anybody who's training at all, if I ever
Yeah.
see someone's blood work and it shows up under 50, I know they're not lifting or they're not
Gotcha.
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no way they're trying. And the same thing is creatinine, that muscle breakdown occurs when you go really close to failure. So if someone's
Right.
got a 1.1 or 1.2 creatinine, I know they're taking their sets to failure. If they've got a 0.9 or a 1, they're going 1 or 2 reps in reserve. So if I've
Mine's
got someone who
1.1.
comes 1.1. So if
Nice.
I see someone who comes, and of course there's some variability between people, but
Sure.
if I see someone with a 200 ALT and a 75 AST, and they've got a creatinine of 1.0, I said, you did a high rep, low
Mhm.
intensity leg workout 3 days ago. And they're
Right.
like, yes, I did. Right. So
There you go.
obviously what happens is these HRT clinics, they see these values elevated and they pull the patient's HRT saying, "Oh, you're dying of testosterone toxicity." It's like,
Gotcha.
no, you fucking assholes. That the person started trying hard because he thinks he's bulletproof because he thinks the
Mhm.
steroids will protect him from overtraining. So now
Gotcha.
they're trying as hard as they could before. Most people
Hmm.
don't try that hard because they're worried about overtraining. And although
Yeah.
that's a concern for type A personality people, that's not a
Hmm.
concern for type B personality people. If the
Right.
person only has 45 minutes a day to train because he's got 2 jobs and 8 kids and he's a CEO and he's got high blood pressure and he's got a six pack,
Hmm.
that's the guy who has to worry about overtraining. The
Right.
dude who's 200 pounds overweight and hasn't worked out in 2 years, there's no such thing as overtraining for you.
Sure.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah,
sense. No, that makes perfect sense. So again, it's not just numbers, but it's how the numbers work in the context of the person, of the patient.
right. And then
Gotcha.
I order different blood work. Also, the APOB, I order that to see the quality of the LDL cholesterol, not just
Hmm.
the quantity, because a lot of people don't understand how their cholesterol works at all.
Right.
And some of the educated ones know that there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, when
Hmm.
it's all good cholesterol. It's just, it all has to be appropriately in a certain range and in a certain
Right.
ratio. Like, for
Hmm.
example, I have a 17 HDL, which is really low, but I have a
Hmm.
43 LDL. So my
Right.
that's 40%. It's like a 1 to 3 rate, 2 to 5 ratio or something. That's not that bad,
Gotcha.
right? Whereas somebody has a 20 HDL and a 160 LDL, that's really bad. That's a 1 to 8 ratio.
Right. So it's keeping that ratio in mind. Okay. All right.
So these are all things to look for when I cover blood work. And so I
Hmm.
have a video called Blood Work for Dummies on my channel
Yep.
where I have it color coded, where it's what medicine are you taking, and then what are the important blood values that your doctor isn't ordering, and then
Hmm.
at the bottom is the bullshit they order because it's cheap,
Right.
and that I have it color coded so that testosterone is in green, and then all the things that testosterone could potentially elevate are also in green. And so
Gotcha.
as you track it over time, you can see progress of these values. So if your creatinine is creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, that's not a big deal if you're training hard. But if your cystatin C is creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, it means that you're using something that could potentially be renal toxic. And so
Gotcha.
you'll never hit that with normal HRT doses. And normal HRT doses are approximately 20 to 30 milligrams a day of testosterone.
Okay.
And anytime you listen to one of these doctors who has you use a harpoon and put a whole half a cc in at once,
Yeah.
you're toxic that day. You're
Right.
guaranteeing problems because you're going to be toxic the first day, and by the third or fourth day, it's almost half out of your system. And then you're getting another, it'd be like I'm going to drink a 12 pack of beer on Wednesday and then
Right.
a 24 pack on Sunday, but I'm not an alcoholic because I drink every day.
That's
Whereas the person who has a glass of red wine every
yeah.
day is going to be perfectly healthy, and they're
Right.
even though they drink every day, so they're an alcoholic. These are nonsense. These are
Right.
nonsense definitions. There's
Yeah.
more than one way to do something wrong,
I
and
remember
so
you explaining this to me. Like it was like a light bulb went in my head. Like, of course, because it's not these spikes of testosterone in your body that then process for days. It's the constant flow and keeping those levels maintained. And yeah, that definitely makes a huge difference. So let's talk about somebody in HRT, the benefits, not just physical, cognitive. What do you see in your practice, like to somebody?
well, so this is going to be a downer, right? But I
Okay.
try to divorce myself from emotion so I can be more successful at what I do.
Okay.
However, what I've heard from other people is the typical I have more energy, I have a better mood, I'm happier, I'm more successful at work. And these are things that I'm out of touch with because
Mhm.
I've been using HRT in one capacity or another for 17 years.
Okay.
So I would never even dream of going off of it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
I'm
Right
too
along with you.
educated to be terrified by society into thinking that something that's good for me is bad. This is the same culture that says Fruit Loops is healthier than a steak. So I don't
Right.
care what they say. I don't care what their experts say. That unless that expert has more degrees than me, I don't care what he says. So
Right.
I'm going to listen to me. and, and I think that you should be on this stuff if your levels dictate it. And the same thing
Right.
with the growth hormone. If your growth hormone is low, your IGF-1 will be low. And so the
Right.
IGF-1 is how we track growth hormone, because growth hormone's in pulses at certain times
Hmm.
a day. You really can't do a blood assay of growth hormone to determine what you're at, but there's a very long half-life on IGF-1. And IGF-1 is the anabolic effect of the GH. So GH
Right.
has metabolic effects and anabolic effects. And all of its anabolic effects are carried out by IGF-1. So we test for IGF-1, we test for testosterone, we test for the metabolites of testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, known as DHT, and estradiol. And now between those four things, testosterone, DHT, estradiol, and IGF-1, I'm able to see, are we using enough testosterone? Are we using enough GH?
Right.
Or is there too much testosterone due to too much DHT? Is there too much testosterone because of too much estrogen? And I can modulate those with certain things.
Gotcha. And again, it's about maintaining what is the lowest effective dose to
Right,
keep those side effects away and get the most bang for your buck.
right,
Is
exactly.
basically what it comes out to. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. Moving into maybe different thoughts and applications, because people, of course, think of HRT and PDs in the athletic realm, in the realm of
Hmm.
bodybuilding, being superhuman, being a great athlete, that kind of thing. But I'll bet that there are applications that you can think of for, say, the elderly. Falling, for example, is horrible when you're old. When you're old, you fall, you break a hip, that's a death sentence. Would it
Hmm.
be, what's your opinion on using maybe something like oxandrolone or different of the anabolic AASs in order to help somebody in a not athletic, maybe like late stage in life to improve life quality? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think it's necessary. I think that
Okay.
if you, with the population you're talking about, if you simply give them testosterone and growth hormone and they've been on it the whole time, they
Mhm.
never would have gotten so weak that they'd fall and break their hip in the first place.
So it
And
becomes
that if,
preventive.
right, and assuming occupational therapy and physical therapy is competent, which is
Mhm.
an enormous assumption, one I don't make, but if it was, if instead of if personal trainers were used instead of physical therapists, then you
Mhm.
get more results out of people. I think that if someone's so infirm they can't get out of a chair, that's when occupational therapy comes in.
Gotcha.
If they can't exercise or they hate exercising, then I could see a place for physical therapy. But if it's somebody who's willing to go to the gym on their own initiative and work out, then
Mhm.
an appropriately geriatric specialized personal trainer would trump a physical therapist any day of the week, based on my experience and what I've seen.
Right.
It's not
Right.
that all physical therapists are bad. I just see that the stuff they have people do makes absolutely no sense to me. And it's generally great for people who have no clue what they're doing and no interest in learning. But if someone's motivated and they want to learn how to exercise and they have a sharp mind, then a personal trainer would be able to give them more of a reasonable structured programming so that they could come in on the other days of the week and work out themselves, at least with machines and cables.
Mhm.
Free weights may be somewhat dangerous for
Right.
people who have no coordination or no athletic ability, but there's no danger in using machines and cables if you use them correctly. And I think that the application for oxandrolone on label is for post-surgery because it's
Uh-huh.
supposed to speed up wound repair. Now, it is not the best at speeding up wound repair, but it is used for wound repair. Some might say DECA or even equipoise, which isn't approved for human usage, would have a better collagen type 1 synthesis rate than Anavar. But all of the testosterone and anabolic steroids are going to have some type of collagen type 1 synthesis, and all of them are going to have some type of cortisol inhibition to prevent muscle protein breakdown.
Okay, so is this part of that whole? It sounds like there are practical applications for these compounds. I mean, obviously,
Hmm.
but do you feel like is it again going back to that whole societal misunderstanding, basic misunderstanding of what these substances are, that they're not being used more in that in
Yeah,
that capacity?
I think that the doctors are just as clueless as the people in the general public, that all of their education comes from watching movies, that there's no learning about anabolic pharmacology whatsoever in medical school, that they're intentionally forbidden from learning it, because if
Mhm.
the patients are healthy, then they can't be sick. And if they can't be sick, the hospital insurance companies won't make any money.
So
And
that
so
goes to the
we have a
larger issue.
healthcare,
Mhm.
right? In medical school, you're taught disease management, not health care. And that's something that we're taught very specifically in our medical ethics class. It's not your job to make them healthy. It's your job to keep them sick and make the
Mhm.
hospital money. It's a
Yikes.
corrupt, evil industry, and I would steer clear of any hospital. And anyone who says otherwise is lying to you.
Wow. Wow. So it's the business conflicting directly with the interest of the patient
Right.
and the doctor,
That's
really,
why,
if you want to give care. Okay.
right. So any honest doctor is not going to take insurance, because if you take insurance, the insurance company tells you how to hurt and maim your patients from the inside out, and
Yeah.
you have to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't take insurance, you can actually treat them so they get better.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
So following now, going back to the benefits of HRT and AASs and so forth, are there any nootropic compounds that you can think of for men looking to optimize health alongside muscle mass while we're in this conversation? Anything that you would add or consider, or this is pretty much the this way is the way?
I don't really believe in people taking drugs for their mind.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think that that's what makes someone a drug addict. And I
Oh.
know that there's prescription medication, and
Mhm.
that there's this cultural misperception that if you get pills from a doctor, it's okay.
Right.
That they're not a drug dealer because they're wearing a white coat. And it's
Mhm.
like drugs are drugs. Whether it's prescription or street drugs, the difference is, in theory, the prescription drugs are healthier. Although 2021 and 2022 taught us that isn't true.
Right.
That the
Well.
point is you're using drugs to alter your mind. And
Mhm.
so to me, it's the same thing as coke, heroin, which are relatively clean, or
Mhm.
Xanax or Ritalin or Adderall, which come in a pill form.
Mhm.
Doing pills is the same thing as doing any other drug. So
Yeah.
if you are morally opposed to drug addiction, then you should be morally opposed to pill addiction. And that
Gotcha.
just because something's sold on a website and called a nootropic doesn't mean it's not the same thing as a psychiatric med that just wasn't approved. So, I mean, it's the same thing as using alcohol to
Yeah.
relax, or using cigarettes to be hyped up, or abusing caffeine to have the illusion of productivity. I
Right.
just don't take any of that stuff. I'm straight edge and I'm boring as fuck. That I will use performance enhancing drugs to make me the best bodybuilder I can be,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to poison my mind with anything.
So now let's talk about you a little bit. So how
Okay.
did you find yourself? Because I find it fascinating, like but it makes sense also when you really think about it, the combination of being a doctor and a biochemist and a bodybuilder. How did you end up doing medicine? Like how did that happen?
So there's a lot of ways, a lot of roads that led to it.
Hmm.
Simply put, there's like, I guess there's three ways. One, my handwriting was terrible, and my dad said, "You better be a doctor because you'll never succeed at anything else." All right. Two, um, I had teachers, all female teachers, that told me I'd never amount to anything because I had bad penmanship. So I was going to
Oh,
prove them wrong. Yeah.
fair.
My mom said I would never get into school and I should give up. So I wasn't going to give up. And so
Wow.
when it comes to the business stuff, I saw that there's three things that people will buy no matter what: gasoline, cigarettes, and alcohol.
Right.
And that's all sold at one place, either a gas station or a party store, right?
Right.
So I was like, who has all the money? In my where I live, it's one specific ethnicity that owns
Mhm.
all the party stores and all the gas stations, and they
Uh-huh.
had mansions, and everyone else was poor. So I was like, so the only way to succeed in life is to be a business person, and the
Okay.
only thing you can sell is something that someone needs or something they can be addicted to. So
Okay.
I noticed that the only way to sell drugs legally is to be a doctor, because the doctors, in my opinion, were nothing but drug dealers.
Uh-huh.
But they had drug dealers in white coats rather than orange jumpsuits.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a way for me to ensure that I'll never starve and I'll always have money so that I can support a wife and kids. Now,
Interesting.
I was into fitness and lifting weights and stuff in martial arts. And I noticed that the doctors didn't seem to have any idea what they were doing. So I was like, if I want to be healthy and live, I have to teach myself medicine because these assholes have no idea what they're doing. They just know
Gotcha.
how to push pills. They just know how to do surgery. They don't know how to help anybody. They're just out to make money. So I was like, in order to protect myself from other doctors, I needed to become a doctor. So that
Gotcha.
was the main reasons, is I wanted to protect myself from other doctors and be my own doctor. I thought I would have the best form of education, so my words are worth money. It's like a golden goose. Is
Right.
you literally can just print your own money with your words are actually worth money.
Sure, because you
So
have knowledge that people want. So
mhm,
by sharing it, you can charge for that premium for that knowledge that you've accumulated. It makes perfect sense.
right. And so, and then as I was in it, I developed compassion in medical school, where I saw how so many people looked up to and cared about their doctors like they were
Mhm.
priests, but they
Right.
didn't understand what was really going on. The doctors didn't give a fuck about them. They just cared about making money.
Right.
And that even if they weren't greedy, the fact that they had so much student loans, 200, 300, $500,000 in
Right.
student loans, they have no choice but do whatever the hospital says so that they can make enough money to pay off their student loans.
Right.
If they're lucky, they don't get married because if they get married, they get divorced and they have alimony and child support on top of student loans to pay back. So
Right.
they get to live in poverty while everyone around them flourishes,
Right.
and they sell their soul basically just to keep their head above water. So I was like, I don't want to be trapped in this cycle. I'm not going
Gotcha.
to participate in that shit. I don't want to push pills. So I was more focused on nutrition and
Hmm.
training, and that I could keep people healthy without the actual pills and
Okay.
without the actual medicine and without using surgery to do that.
So as you
So
learned, were you like basically experimenting with yourself by trying to become the best you could doing bodybuilding? Is that how it kind of?
bodybuilding was way later.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
bodybuilding's way later.
Uh,
So once I was through school and in practice, I started doing powerlifting. And
oh,
then from powerlifting, I was so lean I could compete in bodybuilding. All I had to do was pose. So I did posing I did it as a fluke. Just I learned how to pose, went out there, and I
uh,
used to think that what's the proper term? I looked down on bodybuilders. I saw them as sissies
uh,
because they shaved their bodies, got tans, covered
right.
themselves in oil, wore colorful girls' underwear, and pranced around on stage. And I had no respect for bodybuilding. But when I saw a bodybuilding show in person, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I want to
Uh,
look like that. And I was like,
right.
wait a minute. When I see the guys off stage, I'm like, I'm leaner than that dude. I'm bigger than that dude. I was
Uh,
like, I do look like that. I just have never seen me on stage. So
hmm.
I was like, I'm gonna see this through. And even though I made bantamweight, I won the lightweight class. So I beat everyone in the class above me my first show. And then I got
Wow.
qualified for a national championship. So I was like, I'm gonna take this seriously. So I took
Uh,
it seriously and I got fourth in the North American. So
hmm.
I was fourth in the continent in my weight class. I was like, this is way more fun. And by that point, I had a couple of bikini girls I was helping. And
Uh,
so bikini was a brand new division. And
okay.
and none of the coaches knew how to handle women's endocrinology. They were
Mm,
treating women like little men. So they're giving them breast cancer meds, thinking they were diet drugs. It's
wow.
unbelievable how stupid most of these coaches are. So
Hmm.
I took over a lot of girls' care and I started doing coaching women because no one else knew how to because they didn't understand how women's menstrual cycles worked or anything
Right.
about their bodies. And I
Yeah.
had done extensive OBGYN work. I've operated on breast cancer, ovarian cancer, tons of different C-sections and vaginal procedures. So
Hmm.
I knew women's bodies very well, and these people knew women's bodies not at all. So I started being a coach who specialized in just bikini, and
Wow.
I competed. And before long, I was making more money coaching than I was as a doctor. I was like, I don't need time. I don't have time for this shit. And so I just stopped
Wow.
doing the medicine thing and started just focusing on bikini contest prep
Hmm.
and bodybuilding. And then I got into the supplement industry someone offered me a job instead of just being a sponsored athlete. Would you please do our formula since you're a
Hmm.
biochemist?
Right.
So I started writing articles and doing videos for a website called Mind and Muscle, and I designed a product line called Mind and Muscle for that website. And I
Hmm.
started that, and they did some shady shit, and I had to leave. And I formed my own coaching business, my own website, Todd Lee MD, and I have my own supplement company, Valhalla Labs. And that
Right.
happened in 2015. So now I've had Valhalla Labs since 2015. I've been coaching full time since 2015. And around 2022, I started doing telemedicine. Whereas I was basically doing the HRT telemedicine stuff that I do
Right.
now, in
Hmm.
addition to the coaching, in addition to the supplement. Because
Yeah.
now we've got this hands-off approach during COVID where the healthcare industry was like the Wild West and there
Hmm.
was no regulation. So that someone like me who doesn't want to work within the system and doesn't want to play by some health insurance code, now there's a new field of medicine called HRT telemedicine that doesn't take insurance. So
Right.
now people are used to not relying on third party pays. They're actually willing to pay out of pocket for this stuff. And I
Hmm.
see that everyone's ripping them off, charging them $200 a month and $200 for a bottle of testosterone, and then they have to pay $800 for blood work, then $200 for someone to read the blood work, and all they're going to get is half a cc a test and a half of an Arimidex
Right.
every 3 days. I'm like,
Yeah, the
you're
cookie cutter.
basically
Right.
getting, yeah, you're getting like $10 worth of Arimidex and $50 worth of testosterone every 3 months. You're basically you're getting $60, $70 worth of drugs, but you're paying seven, eight, $900 for that. It's
Yeah.
just a total ripoff. And the
Yeah.
only reason why they're able to do it is because these people aren't sophisticated enough to even know what the street prices are on this medicine.
Yeah. And by the way, that's part of what we're talking about here. And hopefully this podcast, this episode will help shine a light on that because I mean, it's kind of absurd when you have these. I've heard them referred as kind of like the McDonald's HRT clinics or
Happy
whatever,
Meal.
or cookie cutter. Yeah, Happy Meal. Like here,
Yeah,
everyone,
Happy Meals.
one box, same
Yeah.
size. Here you go. So
It's
yeah,
ridiculous. Every single man gets the exact same prescription, no
yeah,
matter what.
yeah,
And then they don't know what the hell they're doing.
yeah. And
And
that's the
what's
thing. Like somebody like my height, my weight versus somebody 6'4", 280. How could they possibly have the same? How could we?
no, what the correct thing to do is you look at the blood and you try to
Mhm.
have a goal. So for me, I like to see a 1500 testosterone and
Okay.
a estrogen that's reasonable
Hmm.
without side effects, DHT that's reasonable without side effects, and an IGF-1 of around 300. If I
Gotcha.
see values like that, I'm like, this person's optimized for health, but they're
Hmm.
optimized for performance. If we start pushing the performance metric, there's a chance, not a
Hmm.
guarantee, there's a
Right.
chance their health might decline. But I know what anybody can get up to the line of 1500 test and a 300 IGF-1, and assuming they're not having estrogenic or androgenic side effects, we're fine.
Gotcha. And that's
And I
and
can
that's
you I,
yeah. That's what we were talking
I
about,
can,
finding that perfect apex of performance and longevity. And that's where you try and
right,
get people to get to. Awesome.
right.
Awesome. So let's see. So what else? What else can you think of that you might want to share with an audience that's curious about this? I will have all of your information at the bottom of the notes here. Anything else that people should be aware of before they start that journey?
Yeah. The legal anabolic steroids are the worst ones, with the
Oh,
exception of Anavar. So
okay.
the Deca, Anadrol, Anavar, and Winstrol are the ones that the HRT clinics will prescribe. These are
Hmm.
not the best ones. These are not the healthiest ones. It's arbitrary, if best, that oxandrolone Anadrol side effect is a massive increase in red blood cell production. This side effect is how they got it approved on label for treatment of anemia. This is a joke that they knew they couldn't get it approved for building muscle. So they came up with one of its side effects and found a disease state that the side effect would actually treat and say, hey,
Right.
look, it'll treat anemia. That doesn't make it the best choice for anemia. You're not going to give it to women, you know?
Right.
So it's a dumb joke. It's the same thing with Anavar. Anavar has
Yeah.
some collagen repair, so therefore it's approved for post-surgery. That's not really a relevant benefit of Anavar. It's not even the top 3 drugs for collagen repair.
Right. It just happens to fit the
It just
label so that we
happens
can
to do
still.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That testosterone increases red blood cells, so testosterone would treat anemia. Testosterone increases collagen, so testosterone would improve on post-surgery. But
Gotcha.
people think testosterone's bad because they're dumb and they
Mhm.
listen to whatever the news tells them. They
Yeah.
wear whatever. So, so they hear oxandrolone, they're like, oh, that sounds safe. They're oxymethylone, which is
Yeah.
I said oxandrolone earlier. Oxymethylone is Anadrol. Oxandrolone is
Gotcha.
Anavar.
Okay.
But so if they're no one thinks oxymethylone is bad for you because they don't
Yeah.
know what the fuck it is. No one thinks oxandrolone's bad for you, but they don't know what the fuck it is. They think testosterone is the root of all evil. Testosterone's going to have you killing babies and stuff in a blind rage and flipping
Yeah.
over cars onto old women as they cross the road. Like they have this stigma from stupidity about testosterone because we've been taught that masculinity is evil, that
Right.
girls are made from sugar and spice and everything nice, and men are made from snails and puppy dog tails. And we're
Right.
taught that from such an early age that men should hate themselves and hate everything about ourselves, that we should hate our hormones too, and that
Right.
anything that comes from us is awful and evil. And so they hate testosterone, so they don't want you to have it, and and people don't want to put it in their bodies because they think it's going to kill them. But then they're taking oxandrolone and oxymethylone, which are worse
Mhm.
for you than testosterone. Now,
Right.
Anavar is still safer by a huge amount than Anadrol.
Mhm.
Oxandrolone is safer than oxymethylone, but structurally they're very similar. That
Right.
carbon 2 in the A ring is substituted for a carbon for an oxygen with oxandrolone, whereas oxymethylone has a more it basically has an ethanol molecule or an alcohol molecule attached to carbon 2. But both of them have 2' modifications on the A ring, and that's what makes them different from dihydrotestosterone. And so structurally they're very similar. Structurally they should operate the same. They kind of do operate the same. I look at Anavar's kind of like a sniper rifle,
Mhm.
whereas oxandrolone's kind of like a shotgun. That you'll get exactly what you're looking for out of Anavar and nothing
Uh-huh.
else. Whereas oxandrolone, you might hit the hostage too. You might
Okay.
or injure an organ
I
system
mean everything.
while you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not good for hostage rescue. It's not good if you want to live, don't use
Yeah.
Anadrol. Anadrol is what you use if you don't give a fuck if you live. So
Okay.
and so
Fair.
they prescribe it to people because they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
DECA is even dirtier. DECA
Uh-huh.
is filthy dirty. It's like a grenade inside of a bouncy ball. That you don't
Gotcha.
know where the fuck that thing is going to end up.
Uh-huh.
That you could give nandrolone to 7 different people and get 7 different shitty outcomes, but it's legal.
Right.
Whereas there's drugs out there like Masteron or
Mhm.
Primobolan, which are
Mhm.
also legal, but no one makes them.
Oh,
So because
okay.
no one makes them, no one can prescribe them. But if a compound pharmacy made Masteron, if a compound pharmacy made Primobolan, you could
Mhm.
prescribe those. Those are a million times better than the other drugs. Because the
Gotcha. And what's
oral
the reason
stuff
why those aren't
is
made? Like it's a
people are
business reason?
stupid.
Oh, just
Now they're just stupid.
okay.
What one thing that people have a hard time with is they assume that there's smarter people than them, and the
Mhm.
people in control are smarter than them, and so
You would think.
shit makes sense. That is not how it works. No,
Okay, that's
the
fair.
the most evil and socially adept people rise to the top. The smarter you are, the less socially adept you're going to be because the more likely you are going to be to call people out on bullshit, and you're
Yeah.
going to get pushed down. So there's smart people who keep their mouth shut, but they're of no use to anyone.
Right.
So the people at the top are usually dumb as shit,
Mhm.
and that's look at the politicians. They're
Yeah.
dumb as shit that they have no fucking idea what they're doing,
Uh-huh.
and they think they're clever because who are they surrounded by? Other dumb people.
Yeah. And yes,
You
man.
know, yeah, the people at the White House did not come from MIT. Like, you're not getting smart people in the White House. You're getting above average people. They're
Mhm.
smarter than the average person. They're not
Right.
smart enough to see which drugs are good and which drugs are bad.
Mhm.
And that so there's no one who's smart enough to manufacture the good drugs so that the patients will be healthy, because the evil people at the top don't want the patients to be healthy.
Right.
If if BPC, TB500, they made TB500 illegal. They made GHKCU illegal. They're taking
Oh, I
every
didn't know
drug that
that.
heals you and makes them
Yeah.
illegal. All of them.
Yeah.
They want
I
all
had
the drugs that heal people and make them illegal.
So I've tried those. Like I actually repaired a rotator cuff tear with TB500 BPC 157, which is what sold me on this, and
Right.
physical therapy. I mean, MRI reviewed, the tear is gone, so it works. I didn't
Right.
know that there had been
So
legislation. Hopefully, things will
so
change.
so here's the thing. You bought that, what? You paid $50 a bottle for that stuff?
Yeah, yeah, just about.
Yeah.
That's about
All
right.
right. So $50 a bottle, you went through one bottle each.
Yeah, yeah, $100. It was like
All right. So
$150 maybe.
so
Yeah.
$100. How much is shoulder surgery? 12
Oh,
grand.
yeah,
So how much?
I don't even know.
So I worked with an orthopedic surgeon who did bicep tendon who did supraspinatus repair,
Yeah.
and she cuts the bicep tendon and doesn't reattach it. And
Why
then I
would
was
you
like,
not
why
read
don't
that?
you reattach it?
Yeah.
And she goes, you don't need the bicep. For flexion, you got the brachialis, and for supination, you have the supinator muscle. So you don't
I
need
kind of
it.
need that. I kind of need that.
And I was like, and someone else told me she gets through cases faster. She can do 5 surgeries in a day if she cuts those tendons and doesn't reattach them, where she
Yeah.
can only get through 4 surgeries in a day if she
She
goes
reattach.
around them. So
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
so she can make 20% more money by hurting 100% of her patients.
Oof.
And she was the head of orthopedic surgery at the largest hospital chain in Metro Detroit.
That is awful. And
And if I say her
sadly,
name, if I say her name or the name of the hospital, I'm opening myself up to a lawsuit
yeah, let's
because
not
of
do that.
paperwork, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lawyer can't punch a hole in. If I say the top, that's fluff words. That's not a
Hmm.
legally binding. For me to say the top hospital, that's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
So because it's a matter of opinion, I'm protected by saying the top hospital.
Yeah,
Because
I
someone
gotcha.
can say, well, there's 4 chains. Which one does he mean? And and what time period? Because in the last 20 years, there's been 15 people that meet that description for all 4 of those hospital chains.
So
So
you
I'm
got
legally
plausible
protected.
deniability.
Right. But you see what I'm saying? That these
Yeah.
are evil, evil, evil people. And
Yeah.
then they're in charge of your health. It's bullshit. That for $100, you repaired a body part that a normal person would not be so savvy. They'd go in there and get surgery for $12,000, and
Right.
maybe, oh, my insurance covers it. It's like, shut the fuck up. You lost 6 months of your life.
Yeah.
When are you going to get that 6 months back?
Yeah.
And
And not
it's
only
like,
that, if it's not attached, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I'm assuming it needs to be attached to work like it should, right?
you're
I would
not
think.
you're not winning a bodybuilding show without a bicep. And so not that, like, well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I was like, do you want to be a body destroyer? Because if you're not one or the other, if you're not actively pursuing perfection all the time,
Mhm.
then entropy will pull you backwards. That
Yeah.
time is a current, and we're all in the same river. So if
Hmm.
you're not swimming upstream against the current, then the current's bringing you downstream off that waterfall, and you're going to get your head crushed by the rocks at the bottom of the
Sure.
waterfall.
I mean, all I can think of is like, hey, maybe I don't want to win a bodybuilding contest, maybe, but I would love to like pick up my grandkids when I'm older, and
Right,
be able to do that.
and that's
So,
one of those things where if people just set, you aim for the stars, at the worst case scenario is you hit the moon. So
yeah.
you want, if you don't, even if you don't want to be a bodybuilder, if you still do bodybuilding shows, you're
Right.
still going to be the top 1% of the human species, physically and health wise. People are like,
Hmm.
oh, bodybuilding's not healthy. It's like, but you're still healthier than the
Yeah.
guy who doesn't do shit. And
Yeah.
if you're not going to do shit, you're just going to drink beer and eat Doritos and watch football, you're worse off than if you're a bodybuilder who uses all the steroids.
Yeah. That's a very, very valid point. For sure. One thing that you just reminded me. I've heard that argument, of course, of like, well, bodybuilders take things to the extreme with the cutting and bulking and all that. Which you and I know we had a prior conversation where like the average person doesn't have to worry about any of that. You can still utilize bodybuilding principles to be healthy.
Yep.
Exercise, recovery, build muscle. Muscle is protective, all that good stuff, right? Basically,
Yep.
that's what you're advocating.
I
Okay.
mean, if you never get fat, you never have to cut. And
Yeah.
if you don't overeat and bulk, you never get fat. So if you
Mm-hmm.
pull yourself down to 8% body fat and you
Mm-hmm.
add and you eat just above calorie maintenance, the new
Mm-hmm.
maintenance of building muscle, and you eat like that for 8 months, and in 8 months you put on 8 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
then in that 8 months you put on 4 pounds of muscle and 4 pounds of fat, you're now from 8% body fat to 10% body fat. So after
Right.
8 months of off season, you didn't get fat. So there's no
Mm-hmm.
bulking, there's no cutting. There's only cutting if there's bulking. Bulking's
Right.
bad for you, cutting's bad for you. And I've, I mean, I've ran some enormous cycles of anabolic steroids
Uh-huh.
in the off season and been completely healthy. As soon as I start on prep and put my body through the stress of losing fat,
Mm-hmm.
now it's not healthy. Now my blood work looks bad.
Right.
So it's the bulking and cutting is what's bad for you. The steroids aren't good for you in high doses,
Right.
above HRT doses. But remember, I was talking about 20 milligrams a day for HRT. There were
Right.
times when I was using 500 milligrams a day,
Right.
600 milligrams a day.
So
So
super
600
physiological amounts. Yeah.
milligrams, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
600 is a lot more than 20. Remember, 20 is 140 a week. 600 a day is 4,200 a week.
Right.
So it's way, 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 way more.
Yeah.
The blood work was still better than most normal people at any age, let alone at 40. So it's not the steroids that are bad if you're not abusing them. Now, I would admit that that is abuse, but I
Right.
had to find the limit. What is the limit for my body as far as abuse goes?
Mm-hmm.
Because I found a safe zone for me was here, safe zones here. This was safe, this was safe, this was safe, this was safe, this was safe. There was no limit as to what was safe. But
Mm-hmm.
I was so far away from what I needed, there was no reason to be this high up.
Right. And again, you had a purpose here because you want to win shows at this point. So
Right.
this is a little
It's
different. This is not just
it's a
my general health, whatever. This is I have an
well,
objective.
it's not just about winning shows. I'm a professional bodybuilder. It's not a hobby. It's a
It's your
primary
life.
career.
It's your life.
Right.
Okay.
So it's 100% of what I care about. From the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, it's bodybuilding the entire time in between. That I do stop to do phone calls for patients,
Mm-hmm.
but that's usually while I'm driving to the gym or driving home from the gym, while I'm
Yeah.
waiting for my food to cook, while I'm waiting for the laundry to dry before I can go do something else. I'm fitting in phone consultations
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day while I'm doing other things that are bodybuilding. And
Gotcha.
so,
Because that's the driver.
and that I'm not suggesting anybody ever take anything that extreme, but it's one of those things where the Navy SEALs, not to say that I'm a Navy SEAL, but the Navy SEALs are in a lot more danger than the guy who works at the VA hospital
For
and
sure.
helps patients find their room. That they're both soldiers,
Right.
just one soldier's the tip of the spear,
Mm-hmm.
and one soldier is basically at the manufacturing plant where the spear was made. That
Yeah.
there's high risk and low risk jobs in the military. Likewise, there's high risk steroid abuse for the purposes of
Mm-hmm.
winning international championships and possibly being one day the best in the world versus I just want to be healthy so I can play with my grandkids one day.
Yeah.
And that there's
Yeah.
no risk with that. There's a
Right.
risk in not doing it. There's a risk having low testosterone. There's a risk having low growth hormone. There's no
Yeah.
risk having an appropriate amount of testosterone and growth hormone. And any doctor tells you otherwise is full of shit and they don't know anything.
Absolutely. All right. So I think that's it for all my questions. So now we go to the fun part of the interview. What
Uh-oh.
clan? Is it Tzimisce? Is it
Oh,
really?
it's Tzimisce for sure. There's no question. That let's discuss this. All right. So Tzimisces have vicissitude, which is shape changing. What is bodybuilding if not shape changing?
It is.
All right. Then Tzimisce have animalism, but from
Mm-hmm.
the Tzimisce point of view, since the Tzimisces, if a vampire is evolved above humans and humans are nothing but cattle to a vampire, and the Tzimisce are the evolved from away from vampires,
Yeah.
then to a Tzimisce, humans are animals. So
Yeah.
animalism works on humans from a Tzimisce point of view,
I mean, that's why there's
philosophically.
Sabbat, right?
Right.
Because they embrace
And
the
that,
beast. That's the whole point.
so
So,
they either leash the beast or they become one with the beast, right? That if you, it's just like young in the shadow. If you integrate with your shadow, you have more power, not less. The lack of
see,
power comes from conflicting with your shadow.
and I come at it from the Toreador point of view. It's all about the
Yeah.
beauty and aesthetics of being perfect,
Well,
bodybuilding to
well,
perfection.
so what's funny about that is you would, if in the Tzimisce world, you would be a Xanthosa, because the Xanthosa were one of the Ravenant lines that had
Mhm.
Auspex, presence, and vicissitude.
Yeah,
And that a lot of the Toreador Antitribu would embrace the Xanthosa to
yeah,
make them Toreador, because the best Toreador stock came from the Xanthosa blood.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's
now,
true.
the other thing is Tzimisces have Auspex.
Mhm.
Nothing's more important than knowledge.
Yeah,
Whether you can see the future, when you can see who's going to try to kill you next, whether
yeah,
you can touch an object and identify whether it's got a magical item, or touch a murder scene and see who committed the crime. If
hmm,
your safe's been opened, you can touch your safe and find out who stole your notebook with your lab
uh-huh.
notes in it so they
Yeah,
could
yeah.
recreate your experiments. Or reading people's minds. Auspex is the king of disciplines. So between Auspex and vicissitude, it's the best disciplines in the game.
So I will say that I'm a huge fan of presence myself. Aspects,
Okay.
absolutely, but presence and celerity, which is why I always ended up in that. Those are good. They're not as applicable for everything like Auspex. Auspex has a million uses. Vicissitude does too, by the way, because you can modify things, right? You can change
Right.
things. So I will say this: if it were up to me, it would be Toreador still. I respect the Simish, but a close third would be La Sombra. And La Sombra is if I were gonna go into the Sabbat side of the house, that's where I would end up. Just sheer ambition. That's all I'm saying.
So, okay. So here, the presence.
Yes.
You're technically taking away someone's free will. However,
Yes.
vicissitude, if you use Auspex and you read their mind and you find out exactly what they want,
Hmm.
maybe they lost an ex-husband. You can use vicissitude to look exactly like their ex-husband. And you
Yeah.
knew the things he used to do that they fell in love with. And you
Because you
can
have
do all
aspects.
those things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so instead of having artificial love where you're mind controlling them, you
Hmm.
actually recreate a genuine sense of love. Of course, it's still love bombing, gaslighting, and all those awful words, but you don't need to have presence. For entrancement, entrancement can be replicated with malleable visage with enough planning.
Yeah.
Also, awe. If
Hmm.
you look super fucking weird because of vicissitude,
Hmm.
everyone's going to stare at you.
True.
So, I mean, the most useful application of awe is if you dominate and
Hmm.
someone's trying not to make eye contact with you, you bust awe, they look at you, and then you dominate, like, don't look away,
Yeah.
freeze.
Well,
And then you
majesty.
can,
Majesty. That's the
majesty is
that's the one.
extremely useful. But
Yeah, majesty is the best.
we, summon's really useful too.
Yeah.
Is that if you need to kill somebody, you summon them to where you're going to be and you have an ambush set up
Yeah, you have
and
it
you
all set up.
ambush them.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so summon kills are always fun, especially if you have majesty, because you summon them with majesty. They show up. They can't attack you. They have to submit to you. People
Hmm.
try to kill them. They start running away. You summon them back. And then so presence is applicable. It's very useful.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I would say Xanthosa,
Yeah.
because the Xanthosa can teach himself celerity. The three
Yeah.
physicals come freely to everyone.
Hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You can do that. All right. Changing the subject super fast. Warhammer.
Uh-huh.
What is your
Warhammer.
faction? What do you like? Tell me what you love Warhammer. We share that too. So go ahead. Where are you at on that?
Night Lords.
There you go. See,
Night Lords all the way. They're
and
not very
I'm
good at fighting, but they're just scary as fuck.
yeah. No, they're cool. They're absolutely cool. But I'm an Eldar person. And
Mhm.
strangely enough, I like the Imperial Guardsmen because of the whole commissar thing, which I thought was hilarious. The whole idea of like having these guys like pushing other people, like, "Hey, go fight," and all that, kind of like Russian style, whatever. But the
Mhm.
Eldar, there's something about the space elf thing that just was like super fun. Check out those Harlequins, man. Those are badass. They're
I
badass.
have a I have a friend. She paints miniatures, and she
Uh,
loves those Harlequins.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're fun. They're super fun to fun figures, fun to paint. It's been a long time though that since I played because I remember I think I probably paid for a semester of school by selling my miniatures back in the day. They were that expensive.
Whoa, that's
So I imagine that.
crazy.
Yeah.
I was never wealthy enough to afford miniatures.
Oh,
Like,
dude, it took years to amass a collection, and as soon as I had it, they changed the rules, and my army was useless. It was completely non-competitive at that point, and I was like, "I'm
I
out.
hate
This
that.
this game's for rich people." Unlike
I hate
role-playing
that.
games, that you have your books, and as long as you have your
Hmm.
books and your friends, you're good to go. So,
It's
yeah, man.
funny that we're about to start up a chronicle we haven't really ran in 20 years.
uh
That it ended in Gehenna, and so
uh
it's a post. Now that they've extended Gehenna all the way up into 2025, there's
uh
all the stuff that happened after Gehenna, and it's like, why did we retired these characters, started new characters,
hmm
because it's supposedly, and it's like our characters still exist in the same universe doing
Right.
other things, and we're just not trying to step on it. Like my character was Regent of the Savate by that point,
uh
and I ended up killing Assam in combat at Alamut because it was all of Lilith.
uh
Lilith had Rose, and the Aralu were actually named. So you have her
uh
four antediluvians that were coming from her, and then
uh
I was on that team, even though I was fourth gen at that point. I wasn't officially third, and then we
Oof.
fought against the remaining third gens,
uh
and because the eldest, he became an oracle or something. He left
Right.
Earth,
Right.
and so I was put in charge of Clan Tzimisce in his absence.
Oh,
So I'm like now the official leader of Clan Tzimisce,
yeah, yeah.
going with
Antediluvian.
Lilith. Yeah, to just well, he isn't third gen, and so that's
Yeah.
the loophole. Is that
Yeah.
after this final fight, all the third gens have to die. So I
Right.
survived because I was fourth, and then we
Uh-huh.
just never played because what do you do after that? You just took out Assam,
Yeah.
and it was like after that, now like my buddy who was a storyteller 20 something years ago, we've been playing this whole time. We just
Uh-huh.
haven't been playing those characters. He's like, let's just start that chronicle again. Let's
Wow, how
pick
do you
up.
start at that high power level though? Like that becomes so epic and so
Well,
like
it, so it's a matter of just outsmarting me. It's he has to outsmart me,
yeah.
and I have to outsmart him, and that's
Right.
all there is to it. So it's like five-dimensional chess with a million different things, like Auspex 9, vicissitude 9, several elder
Right.
powers, 10 different thaumaturgy paths, necromancy paths, coldonic sorcery paths. Like the disciplines aren't all like nerfed out either. Like his lowest attribute's manipulation with a 3. So it's
Oh
like he does have a spread of, it's not like just nines across the
right, right,
board,
right. That
like some
that it's just
child.
over the top
It,
that it's
yeah,
yeah.
it's not that over the top. I mean, his celerity is only a 3.
Right.
So it was really organically put together over all those years.
Uh-huh.
But it's one of those things where I have like a lot of layered powers. Like I have receptive telepathy, so I automatically hear surface thoughts. But I also have telepathic communication, so I can run a network of up to 9 people at once. So that means, and I also have mirrored reflex, so I have a telepathic low-level telepathy, whereas if I'm using telepathy on somebody, I get to know what they're going to do before they do it in combat.
Hmm.
So I have a huge advantage with
Sure.
Auspex
Sure.
dice in
Yeah.
addition to combat dice. So it's like, and I also have ecstatic agony. So as long as I'm crippled, I get +5 dice.
Right.
So I get basically +14 dice on all attacks just from Auspex, not even
Yeah.
counting everything else. And so but then all the people in my network get that too, because
Right.
they're Auspex powers. So I have these stacking effects of these powers, which don't seem
Hmm.
that powerful, but when you stack them together, they're extremely powerful. So
So do
like,
you guys play like your main characters and then the characters that are like the in their organization, if you will? Like, do you guys like swap around between playing your PCs and then other characters within the Chronicle?
right. So you
Okay.
know how like bishops have Templars
Yeah,
and
yeah,
archbishops
exactly.
have Templars,
Hmm.
and then cardinals have paladins. So
Right.
since I'm the regent, I've got 12 apostles.
Okay.
And each one of those apostles I can send forth to do a
Hmm.
task.
Right.
And so we
And then you
might,
get to
as
play
that
that if you want
chapter,
to.
I get to
Cool.
play as the apostle, right?
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's, for instance, my character never lies. That's like
Hmm.
his personal flaw, is he
Hmm.
refuses to lie or do anything dishonest.
Uh-huh.
But he has evil as fuck wives. So he can send one of his wives to go do, he's like, go take care of this land for
Mhm.
me because they're being disrespectful. I want you to go as an ambassador and bring them
Right.
back into the fold. Make sure they're true Sabbat.
Yeah.
So they could do something like seduce the guy and make him think that he's going to be the
Means they
next
can lie.
regent, and,
Yeah.
and get them right and get them to like try to betray me, then
Uh-huh.
execute him for treason because he tried to betray me when they seduced him into it, and then we put a proxy in place
Yeah.
that is actually loyal to me. Or they might show up there and just do an inquisition and just start burning people at the stake because, oh, that's an infernalist. And they
Uh-huh.
use chimistry to create the red veins on their aura so that when
Right.
people use auspex to look at their aura, they see infernalist veins.
All right. They went,
And so, but that's all shit I would think of, but I won't lie.
uh,
But I also have constant telepathy. So I might just be thinking something and
yeah.
then they go do it. I didn't tell them to do it.
That's
Like
right.
that kind of
It's
stuff.
just a proxy.
Yes.
That's all it
It's,
is.
yeah. I bet I
Awesome.
have one person who was a PC. He was just really bad at everything.
Uh-huh.
So if I wanted total fucking chaos,
Uh-huh. You
I
send
would
that
tell
guy.
him, go protect these people.
Right.
Then I
He'll
know they're going to end up dead
he'll
because he's
screw it
just
up. So.
incompetent as fuck. Yeah, he'll screw up anything. It's like, if I want them to live, go kill these people. If I want them to die, go protect those people. And I send the
Gotcha.
most incompetent person I have to go do it.
Gotcha. Do you ever, what other games are you into? Like, let's see. I know that we did D&D forever, back when it was
Right.
AD&D back in the day. I'm sure you did that.
Yep. AD&D,
Um,
AD&D second edition, AD&D third edition,
yeah.
3.5, Pathfinder, fifth
Mhm.
edition, all that stuff.
Okay, awesome. So we're
That's the
definitely,
shirt I'm wearing right now.
yeah, there it
Is
is. There it is. It's
nice
a nice
Chris.
Chris shirt. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, you and I definitely share a love for all of this. So that's fun. If I'm ever in your neighborhood, we'll play. And if you're ever around here, definitely we'll get something going, my
You
man.
got it, bud. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
what's your favorite D&D class?
tough one. My true love, believe it or not, is the bard. I don't know if it's because I'm a musician, speak multiple languages. You can tell I like to talk a lot already. So bards are just and they're just cool. And bards are just cool, man. They're like the Lotharios of the bunch. It's okay, it's fun.
Well, they're strategic as fuck in fifth edition because the charisma casters. If
Mhm.
you take the lore master bard, you get to take spells from other people's schools. So you could take a resurrection, a time stop, and a wish. Once
Yeah,
you get up to 18th level, you
yeah,
could save it the whole way, and then when you get to the top, you're like, I'm
yeah,
gonna buy resurrection and wish
yeah,
and time stop, and
yeah.
it's like boom, you've got
And now you're
everything you need.
unstoppable. Now you're unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Yeah,
What
because
about you?
well,
What's
what
your
does a
favorite
bard
class?
do?
Uh-huh.
A bard's a charisma character, so you're
Yeah,
always going to have henchmen. You can
yeah,
have
sure.
you can the charisma characters are the most useful in D&D across the
Mhm.
board because you pull in what you can't do from others.
Yeah.
So like a paladin, I like an oathbreaker paladin / hexblade warlock.
Oh wow.
That
Okay.
he was a paladin, but he ends up selling his soul to a demon in order to get more power to protect the innocent more, and that's how he breaks his oath and turns evil.
I
Like
like the
or
Hexblade.
that's like
Yeah.
yeah, or like a sorcerer warlock, like
Mhm.
as if you were part demon,
Yeah.
like you're to a tiefling, so
Yeah.
you've got demon blood, so you're a sorcerer, and then your infernal ancestor comes to you and makes a pact with you. So now you're a tiefling sorcerer warlock. Like there's so many good
Yeah.
combination classes. Another one I really like was a swashbuckler, with something else. I'm drawing a blade singer bard. A blade
Oh,
singer
that would be
bard
cool.
crossed
Yeah.
with a swashbuckler.
Yeah. 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 That
So
if you have the right campaign with the right flavor for it, it's perfect.
yeah,
It's fun.
yeah,
It's
those are good combinations because you got the charisma that's
Uh,
useful for both because it's a bard that relies on charisma, and
right.
technically, as a swashbuckler, you use a lot of charisma for your taunts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your main attributes are going to be dexterity and charisma for a blade singer,
Yeah, so you get that super
swashbuckler.
fast, dexterous, like super fun character to play. I've always liked the more dexterous guys rather than the heavy armored guys, even though those are fun to play too, the big tanks too, you know, an old school paladin or something like that.
Mhm.
I like rangers, but I know that in fifth edition, last time I played, they were really underpowered. It feels like they nerfed them really hard.
Well,
I don't know.
it depends if you get the void rangers, the ones who jump from
Oh,
dimensional plane to dimensional plane. Those
mm.
are actually cool.
Oh,
Interdimensional rangers are kind of sweet because it's the only way to play the game where you get to go from plane to plane.
oh wow! I didn't even know that combo or that stat set or whatever. You know, wow. Okay, it's been a
Es-
while since I played.
Especially if you pick a Slayer subclass.
Uh-huh.
So if you jump from plane to plane,
Hmm.
killing elder gods,
Yeah.
like you play like an anti Cthulhu Chronicle, where you go
Right.
from each plane and each plane killing um what are they called, aberrations,
Uh-huh.
like
Oh,
a beholder's an aberration, an
yes. Yeah.
abolec's an aberration, like as if
Yeah.
like you have some type of xenophobia where you don't, anything that's not from your dimension doesn't belong in it, and you will
Hmm.
find them, kill them, and send them back to the dimension that they came. And
That's
then
cool.
yeah,
That's
that would
definitely a cool approach for sure.
yeah,
That's
that'd be a
different
sweet
though.
ranger. Yeah.
Do you like the Planescape stuff? Like, did you
I,
like
lo-
all the?
I remember when Planescape came out in '94. It was my favorite. I
Yeah.
fucking love Planescape when
The
in
whole idea
'94
is
when it came
great.
out.
That was like
It's
such a
fucking
great high
awesome.
concept. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so
Even
cool.
even Dark Sun in its own way was weird and awesome.
Dark
You
Sun
know.
was also one of my favorite. How like the
Yeah.
half giants have a different alignment every day.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
wake up, it's like they go to bed lawful good, they wake up chaotic evil and slit your throat and take your
Uh-huh.
water,
Didn't they have
like while you're sleeping.
like cannibal halflings or something there too? They had some
They had
crazy stuff in
they
there.
had everything. Dark
Yeah.
Sun was the darkest. The fucking defilers, the only way
Yeah.
they can cast their magic is to suck life out of the land, and it creates dust and silt.
Yes.
And that their oceans were made out of silt, the sea of
Yeah.
silt. They had no water. Their
Right.
oceans were made out of just dust. That's how brutal the defilers are. And then once you hit 21st level, you start turning into a dragon. So the
Yeah.
only dragons on the planet were the defilers that sucked so much life out of the earth that they
Yeah.
started turning into demons. Like, oh my God, Dark Sun is the fucking coolest setting.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so dark.
Yeah, it was great. It was like it was a fun campaign, and it was so different from anything else too. That's the other thing, because it's, you had a lot of the Forgotten Realms and Waterdeep and Greyhawk, and those all had that kind of like Tolkien-esque kind of style to
Mhm.
them. But yeah, Dark Sun and Planescape were like just completely out there, super fun, super duper
Yeah,
fun.
way, way, way advanced. And
Yeah,
like the Gith, so the
yeah,
Gith Zerai were from Spelljammer. They were
yeah,
basically space pirates,
yeah.
and that their ship crashed on the Dark Sun homeworld
Mhm.
thousands of years ago. So the Gith are like the Mad Max mutant, the Hills Have Eyes version of the Gith Zerai.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's
so
hilarious too.
creative. It's
Those
so
are those
creative.
were fun. I remember picking up the Fiend Folio when it first came out and reading about those two, and I was like, "This is amazing. This is like really creative stuff here." So,
What they based it off of like Babylonian
oh, is that where they
architecture
came from?
too. The
Oh,
ziggurats. Remember they had the step pyramids?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I didn't
great
realize that.
dragons
Okay,
here. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like kind of like a Conan the Cimmerian
yeah,
version of D&D.
yeah, yeah. Man, Kona,
It's
that
it's
that brings it back. I
yeah, it's
remember they even had the Hyborian Adventure set back in
right.
the day.
It's just a darker version than Tolkien. The Conan version, because the mules are basically supposed to be like Conan. It's half
Yeah,
dwarf, half human, twice the
yeah,
badass. They're like the
yeah,
perfect
yeah,
race for a player character who wants to fuck shit up.
yeah, absolutely. Man, Kona, of course, then that brings it all back to bodybuilding in my head. It immediately comes
And
back to Schwarzenegger in the
yeah,
day, man.
and everyone had psionics, at least one
Yeah.
spell.
Yeah.
Everyone had
Psionics were
some type
cool,
of
man.
psionics.
Psionics
Psionics
were
were
very
cool.
cool. Yeah, if
Yeah.
if you figured out a way to integrate it, I remember there was a campaign setting of these characters called the Darini, and they were all psionics, and but they were like hidden amongst the human population,
Hmm.
and the whole campaign was about some people were psionic and they had to keep it quiet because they would be burned at the stake
At
for
the
being
stake, I
psionics.
knew it.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, it was
I knew
great.
it. I knew that's where you're going with it. It's like you play a character where you're like behind enemy lines. You're a character who's a
Yeah,
psionic, and everyone wants to kill the psionics.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
would just be a fun chronicle. But what would be cooler is to do it with an actual group of player characters,
Uh-huh.
and one of them has psionics,
And
and
nobody
you don't
knows.
tell anyone, and
Yes.
nobody knows, and then the whole group are like inquisitors, where they're
Yes.
hunting down psionists. So you could do that in a Sabbat game too. Is you
Yeah.
have one of the characters in the group is an infernalist, and
Yeah.
the rest of the group are actually in the Inquisition. So
Right.
they're out looking for infernalists and killing
Right.
infernalists.
And you had that one
Meanwhile,
in there.
one of the characters is infernal and using like soul mass to cover up his red veins.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
that
that
would be for a fun time.
well, I would totally be like, oh, here's their grimoire. I'll go dispose of this, and I'd go like take it and have my familiar read it so it can learn all the spells out of the grimoire. Then
Yeah.
burn it. Then I'll have my familiar teach me. Like I pretend to be like a city grow, so I have
Yeah.
obfuscate and animalism. When really
Right.
I'm using the obfuscate to cover up my aura and
Right.
using the animalism. It's not really animalism. It's a familiar, but they
Right.
think it's animalism. Right.
That would be awesome. That'd be fun. All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go. Dude, this has been like probably the most fun podcast I've done ever.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah,
So,
as soon as yeah, the steroids and the HRT stuff is nowhere near as fun as gaming stuff, but
yeah,
that's what people want to
that's the
watch.
yeah, that's the so I'm trying to create something. So my oldest son, just to give you some quick background, I won't hold you
Hmm.
long, I promise. My oldest son has Down syndrome and he's an
Hmm.
athlete. He's actually
Okay.
wants to get into bodybuilding now, and he's
Hmm.
actually pretty jacked. It's like 12% body fat. He's in good shape.
Hmm.
So this whole dive into learning more about everything, biohacking and bodybuilding and all that is inspired by him. And also, I told you I lost like 100 pounds like 6, 7 years ago. No
Hmm.
GLPs, just straight up, just did it. So now I'm like in that point of like, wow, now I'm in pretty decent shape. What can I do to get better and bigger and all that? So, which is how I found you, and Paul and Big Paul, who, by the way, shares a love for nerdery like we do,
Oh
by the
yes.
way.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I had fun with him, and his podcast interview was great too. He's super fun to talk to. I almost wore a Pantera shirt for you too, by the way, but
Okay.
I figured
So
like
what's
I'd
your
keep it label free. you
what's
know.
your favorite Pantera album?
My favorite is the Vulgar Display of Power,
Okay.
because I saw them in '94 in Puerto Rico, where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
They played, so it was the original lineup, and then I didn't see them again until last year with Zach over here
Right.
in Atlanta, and it was
And Charlie Minate.
yeah, and it was such a good show too. They were both very different, but great, and they did a great job of like not changing anything, like they played the songs straight. They played them like they should be played. Like Zach Wild was very good about. He's an incredible guitar player anyway, but he
Right.
was like, no, I'm gonna keep it in Pantera style. It's gonna be Vinny. It's gonna be Dimebag. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Lamb of God
Awesome.
opened for them too, so that was great. That was
That would
super
be a
good.
good show. I love Randy's voice.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right.
That's Paul's favorite band is Lamb of God.
I
Yep.
should have mentioned that to him.
Yeah,
Next
Randy
time.
trains at the same gym as Paul, the shop in DC.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's small world, man. Like, when I did the interview with him, he's like, "Are you going to the Arnold?" I didn't even know what the Arnold is until a month ago, man. Okay. All right. Now,
don't
I will be
don't tell
going to
anyone
the
that.
other. I won't.
Don't tell anyone
I'll
that.
be, remember, I'm coming at it. I'm coming at it from the outside. I can be if you ever need a guest that's like tangential to bodybuilding, but not exactly. I'm your guy. I'm your TRT guy. You know, I can be your guest if if you want. But I will be going to the Olympia this year, though, for sure,
Okay,
because
cool.
I'm curious because I want to learn. I want to learn more about the art and the sport of bodybuilding. Now I'm really interested.
That's
So
that's quite a first show to pick. I mean,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
it's Vegas.
you're
I love
gonna
Vegas.
you're gonna spoil yourself.
Yeah, you know, if you only live once, man. I'm 53. My kids are almost all grown up now. The wife and I can travel. She also lost like 80 pounds. She's like a super hot redhead now. I don't know how I
Awesome.
pulled that, by the way. I have no idea how I pulled that. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, if you're there, if you do go there, I'd love to like meet up with you, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, and if not, then the Arnold next year, which actually sounds like more fun because they have combat stuff, which
The
to me
Arnold's
that sounds
way
fun.
more fun. The Arnold's
Yeah,
way more fun. It's a lot less pressure.
yeah,
Um, it's just more chill and laid back than the Olympia. Olympia is so high stakes.
yeah, yeah. Olympia, I guess it's the big one, right? That's the big show for
Well,
for
plus
bodybuilding.
the barrier for entry is really high because Ohio, you can drive to Ohio. Nobody lives really close enough to Vegas to drive to Vegas.
Yeah, you got to
So
fly. Or, yeah,
everyone's flying in. So
yeah,
it's a lot rougher. It's not like a 2 day thing. It's like a 5 day thing.
yeah, yeah. Is it fun though? Is it still fun?
Yeah, it's still
Like
fun.
even as a casual observer, just learning, like I'd have a good time.
I mean,
Hey, it's
it's
Vegas.
so overwhelming. I can only
Okay.
remember what it was like my first bodybuilding show. And
Uh,
I had no idea. The lighting, having the
mhm.
lights, the top down theater lights, and the tan and the oil,
Yeah.
the way the humans looked, they looked inhuman. I
Gotcha.
never knew. And the two-dimensional images are nothing. The
Right.
way the women look and the way the men look in person is
Hmm.
so bizarre that it completely changes your ability to look at humans for the rest of your life. Like
Gotcha.
it's, yeah,
Really? Okay. Well,
it would
that's
be
something
like,
to think about.
it'd be literally like watching someone turn into a werewolf before your eyes. You will never look at reality ever the same again. Your
Like,
whole perception of human beings changes after you see a real bodybuilding show in person.
yeah. No, I can only imagine. I can only
It,
imagine.
it,
So.
it's almost like it almost is a spiritual thing. Like gods are real, and there's a
Mhm.
God inside of each and every one of us, and all
Mhm.
you have to do is allow it to break
Unleash
out
it.
of its
Yeah.
shell.
Yeah. Just unleash it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, you've convinced me. And by the way, we're so off topic at this point. I'm going to edit some of this out because we're like, this is just
Why?
us talking at this point. I don't know.
This is what people actually like.
You think? Okay.
Oh yeah,
Well, we'll
this is what
we'll
people
go with
actually
it.
like.
We'll roll with it. But after reading through Big Paul's course, he has that anabolic course,
Hmm.
and listen to your advice. Maybe it's time to like step into the dark side, be on TRT. We'll see.
I
We'll
don't.
see, I
I
guess.
wouldn't jump that far unless you're not making progress in the gym.
Yeah.
If you're
Which
not making any progress in the gym, that's when you step up your gear usage.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, so far TRT seems to be working. I am hitting PRs. You know, I feel good. So I guess, like you said, it's all about when you hit that plateau, right? That's when you go like, okay, now I need to step up the game. So yeah, good point.
Right. And, and
Good point.
because you've already lost your hair, you
Hmm.
can do the Paul way of going test and primo,
Uh,
and that's going to be totally fine as long as you
mhm.
keep your estrogen balanced.
Yep.
I think my way is always the safest, the minimal test, and you drive up the masteron. But
Hmm.
in the only population I think primo is safe is people who've already lost their hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm already thin on top and all that, and I shave it anyway. So
Right. In
who
that
knows?
case, it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll see. And there's so much to learn about all of this, about the
Mm-hmm.
art and the science. That's what I love about bodybuilding that I'm starting to learn, even though I'm new at it. It's that combo of art and science, man. Like together. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's that and for aesthetics, which is
Right.
crazy. So
Which is what the Bruja claim Carthage was like. That
yeah,
they were warrior
supposedly.
philosophers. That it was
Those
the
guys.
balance of athleticism and philosophy that, and in the reality wasn't that at all. The Bali were basically using Carthage as a sacrificial pit to Moloch, but they don't remember that version of the story.
That's right. That's right.
The Third Punic War was a battle between Moloch's faction of Bali and Nergal's faction of Bali, and they
Mhm.
used the Ventru and the Bruja as proxies,
Yeah, I
just
was gonna
like how
say
they
the
used
Ventru were the
Sicily
Romans,
as
right?
a right. It
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
Romans, the Malkavians, and the La Sombra.
yeah, yeah. That's right. La Sombra was still back around for that. Wow,
That
man, I'm
what
gonna
the
have to
Bali
break out
did.
my books.
Yeah, the Bali introduced road of sin to the
Hmm.
Malkavians, and that's why at the end of the Roman period they were just so crazy and debauched that they corrupted the Roman lifestyle with
Hmm.
road of sin, whereas in Carthage they were doing human sacrifices to Moloch. That's how they corrupted the Assamites and the Bruja.
Fair, fair. That's true. Wow, you've got all this lore already, like at the tip of your brain. Like I don't know how you're doing that. I haven't. I've got like my books right over there, and I'm going to have to crack them open tonight for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
if you want to know what's the core of the world of darkness,
Hmm.
you follow the Salubri,
Hmm.
the Tzimisce, and the
Hmm.
Bali.
Okay.
That those three clans are what holds the whole world of darkness together.
The thread. That's the
Yep.
whole thread. Okay. Did
Because
you
the
ever play
Bali are,
Mage or any of that other stuff?
yep.
Oh, you did? Okay. That
Oh
was
yeah.
a fun game. The what was the other one? Wraith? Was it Wraith? The
Wraith
one
was
about ghosts?
Wraith was dark as shit. Wraith
Yeah.
was dark as shit.
Yeah. I remember reading one of their novels, Beyond the Veil, and I'll never forget
Hmm.
it because it was depressing as all.
Yeah, you can really fuck up a group of young people if you ever play
Yeah.
a Wraith game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wraith was woof, that was painful. Yeah, because Mage was fun. The Ascension, it was kind of fun. It had a changeling kind of feel to it. I don't know. Uh, and Vampire, I mean, even Werewolf was fun in its own brutal way. The clans were fun there. The Fianna were fun. I remember those guys. Those were like the Irish. See, there's that bard thing again.
I know
So
you got a thing. It's I got you figured out. You probably like Puka in the Changeling game or
yeah, yeah,
Satchers.
probably they were fun. They were super fun.
Yeah, and then you
So
probably like Cult of Ecstasy for Mage.
yes, that's correct. Actually, very, very well
Yeah,
observed. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
There's
I would
definitely
have
a
to
thread.
say you're probably ENFP on the Myers-Briggs personality assessment.
ENFP. That's executive. What's the what?
Uh,
E,
uh,
what was it? I forgot.
Extro,
What it is.
e- extroverted,
Extroverted.
intuitive,
Intuitive.
feeling, and
Yeah.
perceptive.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah, you're
Sounds about
ENFP.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Man, I hadn't thought about the Myers-Briggs test in a while, but that thing is frightening. it's it's a frightening way of classifying people. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
easy, man. Once
Yeah.
you know someone's nature, demeanor, path of
Uh-huh.
enlightenment, and their
Yeah.
Myers-Briggs and their astrological sign, you pretty
Yeah.
much know everything they're going to do in any given situation.
Astrological sign. So I'm a Taurus. Just if it's not even
Interesting.
completely
Because a Taurus,
obvious.
yeah, Taurus doesn't fit your rest of you at all. You come across as a Sagittarius.
Oh, really? See, so I thought Taurus be earthy. I love to eat. I'm possessive, stubborn. There you go, Taurus. So,
But a Taurus would rather, I would think a Taurus would play a Tremere or Venture because you're
probably.
organized and
Yeah,
very
probably.
books focused,
Yeah,
spreadsheets.
yeah. That's the ADHD in me. For sure. For sure. Oh, man. So anyway, I have to go and deliver children to parties and things that they're doing. I have a teenage daughter too, so that's super
All right,
fun.
cool. All right,
Todd,
buddy.
this has been incredible. I'm gonna do the official send off and do the Todd. You have been by far the most entertaining guest I've
Thank you.
had, as well
Thank
as
you.
extremely informative. So with that, everyone read about Todd's information is going to be here in the comments and in the liner notes, so you can get in touch with him. Now, in all seriousness, if you want to do things right, if you want to do your HRT right, if you're interested in answering these questions, this is a service that Todd provides. So please go to his website, check it out, get a consultation, get it done right. It's your health. You only live once. So with that, Todd, thanks again. And
Thank you.
everyone, remember, assess, adapt, overcome. And this is Rise 41 signing out. And that's that.
That
Just
was
like
awesome. So
that. Yeah.